Like, all that going on strike does is performative, and everybody knows it's performative. And the league, I think the league to an extent aren't taking players that seriously. The league aren't taking players that seriously, and we've heard plenty of times the league's being like, oh, these players don't really know business, that these players are like complete, basically.
With just 3 days left before the deadline, Breanna Stewart says she believes an agreement will be reached. Realistically, that confidence feels misplaced. The WNBA and the Players Association are on the verge of missing their second deadline in just 6 weeks. What stands out is not the delay itself, but the fact that everyone involved seems to understand the situation already. The threat of a strike exists on paper, but it is widely seen as symbolic. Still, both sides continue the routine as if the pressure is real. Many people argue that any serious talk of creating a rival league only strengthens the owner's position. From their perspective, it reinforces the idea that players are disconnected from reality. Yet, the league's most influential athletes understand the stakes. Players like Breanna Stewart, Napheesa Collier, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and others know this season has to happen. They recognize how fragile momentum can be, and how much the league has to lose if things fall apart now. This is where the central problem becomes clear. Napheesa Collier runs Unrivaled, a 3-on-3 league with 6 teams playing in a single venue in Miami. The WNBA, on the other hand, operates on a much larger scale. It has 12 teams, plans to expand to 15, national television deals, and involvement across dozens of cities. When Collier positions herself as someone who understands business at the level required for these negotiations, it does not help the players' case. Instead, it highlights the gap between how players view the league and how ownership operates it. To the people in charge, it sounds like the two sides are living in entirely different worlds. Even 6 weeks ago, during the last extension, the tone was different. Words like slap in the face were common, and frustration was openly voiced. That frustration still exists, especially among players who have openly criticized the league's leadership for years. Some of the loudest voices now come from athletes who have personal grievances with the commissioner, which is understandable. The WNBA's ownership structure and the involvement of private equity have created resentment that did not appear overnight. Behind the scenes, though, the players who truly matter understand the leverage they actually have. The stars who drive revenue know exactly what is at risk. Stewart, Collier, Angel Reese, and others have watched Caitlin Clark reshape the business of women's basketball in less than a year. Attendance, viewership, merchandise, and sponsorships have all changed because of her presence. Missing games now would not just hurt the league, it would directly hurt the players themselves. Momentum like this does not pause and resume easily. The real question is not whether a deal will happen. It is how much public posturing occurs before everyone admits what they have known since January. A strike at this moment accomplishes very little. If players were to walk out now, the immediate impact would fall on them, not ownership. Anyone rehabbing with their team, using team facilities, or receiving medical care would have to stop. Players working out locally instead of overseas would lose access to resources overnight. Think about what that means in real terms. Caitlin Clark would not be able to practice with the fever. Aaliyah Boston would have to leave Indianapolis. Injured players currently recovering in team cities would be forced to relocate or pause treatment. All of this disruption would happen without a single regular season game being missed. The message would be symbolic, but the cost would be real. Everyone already knows the players are capable of striking. That is not new information. Leverage does not come from proving you are willing to walk away months before the season starts. It comes from having alternatives that make the league feel replaceable. A February strike, especially before the draft, does not create pressure. It creates inconvenience. That is why most people involved see the strike talk as performative. Players know it. Teams know it. The league office knows it. The process continues because negotiations often require visible tension, even when the outcome is predictable. This will get resolved not because of threats, but because neither side benefits from dragging this out too far. A more realistic timeline makes this clear. Unrivaled ends on March 4th. The WNBA draft is scheduled for April 15th. That leaves about 6 weeks to finalize everything. However, once Unrivaled wraps, roughly 30 players who have been in Miami for months will suddenly be available to focus fully on negotiations. The real pressure point is not this Friday. It is closer to St. Patrick's Day around March 7th. That window allows time for emotions to cool after the unrivaled championship. From there, the expansion draft follows quickly, then free agency opens on April 1st. Within 2 weeks, teams face major roster decisions before the draft even begins. The schedule becomes compressed and chaotic, but it is manageable. That is when urgency becomes real. Some point out that Unrivaled already takes breaks during the week, which theoretically allows room for discussions now. But history shows that serious progress happens only when deadlines feel unavoidable. Once Unrivaled ends, attention shifts entirely to the WNBA, and momentum builds naturally. Now, let's talk about the leverage players actually have, because it is not the strike threat. The real power lies in something far more extreme, something few people say out loud. Imagine Caitlin Clark, Sabrina Ionescu, Aya Wilson, Angel Reese, Breanna Stewart, and Paige Bucher standing together and announcing a new league. Imagine NBA owners backing it, Nike funding it, and 8 major cities already committed. That scenario would terrify ownership. That is real leverage. Not a temporary walkout, but a credible alternative. A league built around the most marketable players the women's game has ever seen would force the WNBA to react immediately. That possibility is far more powerful than any short-term strike. However, that option requires something the players do not currently have: complete unity among the biggest stars. Caitlin Clark has shown no interest in tearing down the league that drafted her. Angel Reese is actively building her brand within the WNBA system. Aya Wilson has been the face of the league for years and has endorsement deals tied directly to its success. Breanna Stewart has long-term investments connected to the league's future. These players are not reckless. They understand business. They understand timing. And they understand that shutting down the WNBA would also mean shutting down their own growth. That is why this situation will end with an agreement, not a collapse. Despite the noise, the delays, and the public frustration, a deal will get done. It may not look pretty. It may involve tense moments and dramatic statements. But the reality is simple. The league needs its stars, and the stars need the league. Neither side benefits from blowing everything up when women's basketball is finally gaining real traction. In the end, this is not about threats or headlines. It is about preserving momentum, protecting long-term value, and recognizing that sometimes the smartest move is not the loudest one. The so-called nuclear option only works if the players who generate the most money are truly willing to walk away from guaranteed income and established platforms. Right now, there is no real sign that any of them want to take that risk. Walking away sounds powerful in theory, but in practice it means giving up security, visibility, and long-term partnerships. Most star players are not eager to gamble everything they have built. For that option to even be possible, major brands would have to be involved. In reality, that mostly means Nike. Other companies exist, but Nike holds the real influence in the shoe and sponsorship world. Without their support, a new league led by players would struggle to gain immediate credibility. So even if Caitlin Clark, Sabrina Ionescu, Aya Wilson, Angel Reese, Breanna Stewart, and Paige Bucher stood together and announced a brand new league, it would only work if a powerful sponsor backed it from day one. In this imagined scenario, they would say they already have teams ready in 8 cities with ownership groups lined up. Some of those owners might also own NBA franchises, but the project itself would be separate. That is not unusual in sports. Owners often hold stakes in multiple teams across different leagues and even different countries. We have seen examples of this with football clubs and other professional organizations. Still, that scenario remains hypothetical, not something that looks close to happening. Because of that, what we are watching now feels like a strange performance. Both sides understand how this will likely end, yet they continue playing their roles. The players talk about striking to show their fellow union members that they pushed hard. The owners push back to show they cannot be forced into a deal they dislike. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has become the main target for player anger, even though replacing her would not suddenly change how negotiations work. Everyone involved knows this is theater, but the performance serves a purpose. This public tension allows both sides to claim victory once an agreement is reached, likely sometime in mid-March. Players who have criticized the commissioner for years continue to do so, and in many ways that frustration is understandable. The players do have real complaints. Revenue sharing, salary limits, travel standards, and marketing support are serious issues. These are not made-up problems. They affect players' daily lives and long-term careers. The problem is not the complaints themselves. The issue is how they are sometimes presented. When public conversations compare running a short-term startup league to negotiating a major professional sports agreement, it weakens the players' credibility. Owners do not have to take demands seriously if they believe the people making them do not fully understand the scale of the business. Managing a small league for a few months is not the same as overseeing a national operation with expansion plans, broadcast contracts, and long-term financial commitments. The players who truly understand the business side are not the loudest voices in interviews. They are the veterans who have spent years watching the league grow, struggle, and change. They are not saying deadlines do not matter. They are sitting in private meetings discussing revenue forecasts, operating costs, and long-term strategy. That is where real negotiation happens, not in headlines about walking away. One thing many people miss is that extending deadlines does not mean failure. In fact, it often means progress. As long as both sides are still talking, there is a path forward. The worst outcome would be one side leaving the table entirely. Continued discussion, even if slow, signals that both groups want a deal they can accept. The players will almost certainly end up with a better agreement than the previous one. They have to, because the league's income has grown significantly over the past 2 years. The old deal no longer reflects the current reality. At the same time, they are unlikely to get everything they are asking for. Costs have risen as well, especially with expansion, increased travel, and added infrastructure. The final agreement will land somewhere between the two positions. When the deal is announced, both sides will say they won. Then attention will shift to other debates, like whether the expansion draft rules are fair. But what really matters comes after that. The true measure of success is whether the new agreement creates a healthier future for the league. Does it allow teams to build stable rosters while paying star players what they deserve? Does it finally fix long-standing travel and housing problems? Does it give players a real share in the league's growth instead of just promises? These are the questions that determine whether this negotiation mattered. Hitting or missing a February deadline does not answer them. The league's next generation is paying close attention. Players like Clark, Reese, and Buchers are watching how this unfolds. They are evaluating whether this is a league where they can build lasting careers, or just a temporary stop between overseas contracts. These negotiations are not only about current salaries, they are about whether the WNBA can become a destination, not a stepping stone. That is why repeated strike threats can be counterproductive. They create the impression that players do not understand what they are actually fighting for. In reality, the smartest players know exactly what is at stake. They are pushing for a structure that makes professional basketball a sustainable career. They want marketing support that grows individual brands. They want revenue sharing that reflects the value they bring through ticket sales and television audiences. Those goals are achievable, but they are not achieved through emotional arguments or comparisons that do not hold up. They are achieved by presenting clear proposals backed by financial data. They are achieved by showing owners that better pay and conditions lead to better performance and stronger fan engagement. Business cases win negotiations, not public threats. When the announcement finally comes, pay attention to the details. Look at how revenue is divided. Look at how much the salary cap increases. Look at whether travel and accommodations truly improve. Those specifics will tell the real story. It is possible the agreement will sound impressive in press releases, while leaving deeper problems unresolved. That is the other risk. The league could settle for a deal that keeps stars satisfied while leaving mid-level players struggling. It could make small improvements without changing the underlying system. If that happens, all this public drama will have accomplished very little. 5 years from now, the same arguments will return, possibly with even less leverage for players. The real test is not whether a deadline is met. It is whether the agreement creates a system that works for everyone, not just the most famous names. The league's recent growth created a rare opportunity to reshape women's professional basketball. The question is whether the people in charge are willing to take that step or whether they will choose the safer path. My guess is that an agreement will be announced around March 17th. It will be enough to avoid disaster, but not bold enough to solve everything. Fans will celebrate the season moving forward. Both sides will declare success. And unless something truly changes, This same conversation will return in a few years. The only thing that could prevent that would be real unity and commitment from the players, and so far there is little evidence that exists.